Okay, well, diolch yn fawr, thank you. Can I introduce you, please, to a colleague of mine, Aaron Morris. Now, he was employed 2.5 years ago as part of Wikimedia. Môn, or Mona in Latin, is Anglesey, of course, in Wales. And it's Môn Mam Cymru. Môn is the mother of Wales because of the barley and the wheat going to the mountainous regions of Wales. So in Anglesey, this project of ours, Wikimedia, was started by Wikimedia UK and a venture group, a language venture group. There are 22 altogether in Wales. This is one of them, the mother of them all, if you like. So what really has happened is that the training of Wikipedia skills is integrated into the Welsh Baccalaureate. So it's a part of the established national curriculum of Wales. So 17, 18-year-olds will train other people with Wikipedia skills so that they can train other people. Rather than training the skills, they train people to train, if you like, train the trainers and so on. And then next year, hopefully, it will be also within the year 10, year 11, the lower groups, 16-year-olds, the GCSE, if you like, so it'll be ingrained, hopefully, within that as well. So there will be a continuum then from O-levels and A-levels, as we used to call them. So here's a short video he's done. He's done two. There's another one coming out. This one is based on primary work at primary level, where they don't edit themselves, or they're not allowed to edit on their own. So they work as a group, and they edit as a group to make sure that they stay within the recommended articles and so on, which is good. So this is Aaron, this is Wikimedia, so I hope you enjoy it. Thanks.
Mae Wikipedia yn wefan, mae pawb yn gallu ffeindio unrhyw fath o wybodaeth am llawer o bethau gwahanol. Fysa chi'n gallu ffeindio links amdan beth ydych chi wedi searchio fewn, neu ydych chi'n gallu ffeindio bethau arall fel lluniau, wybodaeth, news a pethau eraill gwahanol. Mae golygu meddwl bod ti'n newid pethau sydd ar Wikipedia. So dyd mae rhywbeth yn anghywir ti'n medru wneud o'n gywir, neu os mae yna ddim ffaith ti'n gwybod amno fo, ti'n medru dweud y ffaith yna. Erthygl ydy y tudalen hefo ffeithiau amdan y pwnc. Roberts wedi gofyn I ni dod o hyd I ffeithiau amdan Llambed y Goch yr ysgol ac yr pentref ei hun. Mae'n pwysig ofnadwy I ni ymchwilio am y gwybodaeth. Rhaid ofn bod pobl yn darllen y gwybodaeth anghywir, hedyn ni ddim eisiau hynna digwydd.
Rydyn ni wedi bod yn tynnu lluniau oherwydd rydym wedi bod yn rhoi nhw ar Wikipedia I pawb eraill gael gweld yn pentref bach hyfryd.
Rydyn ni wedi dysgu fel gwahanol fath o erthyglau ma yna, so da ni medru clwydio.
Pan da chi'n cychwyn, mae'n dipyn bach yn anodd. Mae'n eithaf hawdd pan da chi'n gwybod sut ti'n neud o.
Mae defnydd o cymhwysau digidol yn un o'r pethau trawsgweithio da ni'n gofyn wneud fel ysgolion. Dyma prosiect fel hyn, mewn ffordd mewn plethu'r ochr ddigidol ond hefyd yr ochr llythrennau fe rhywbeth I ryw raddau. Ac o dan y gwahanol elfennau, mae'n taro sawl elfen wahanol. Drwy gallu cydweithio efo'i gilydd, edrych beth ar y we a hyd yn oed pethau fatha hunaniaeth, cyfrifoldebau ar y we a hawliau. Mae'n dall rwan. Na ddim bod na ddim rhywun yn eistedd mewn swyddfa yn gola yn sgwennu erthyglau wiki. Maen nhw'n gwybod beth ydyn nhw, sut maen nhw'n gweithio, a mae cael cymryd rhan fel hyn yn gwneud iddyn nhw deimlo reit bwysig. Elfen o'r siarter da ni wedi bod yn cael traffaeth efo medru ymateb iddo fo yn yr ysgol ydy defnydd o'r dechnoleg Ond mae hwn yn golygu bod y plant yn gwneud hynny lle. Maen nhw'n gwneud defnydd o'r technoleg yn y Gymraeg.
Glwys i am y prosiect Wikimor yn gyntaf ni wrth y modd, achos heb os o gen y bai, wrth gwrs mae o'n cefnogi pob un dim o'r egwyddorion sy'n perthyn i'r siarter. Da ni yn gofyn i'r plant gyfathrebu'n y Gymraeg, ac yn sicr mae'r cyfathrebu'n amlwg iawn ymysg yn bobl ifanc ni trwy gyfrwng digidol. Erbyn hyn, wrth gwrs mae'n plethu mewn i gynllun miliwn o siaradwyr lle mae gofyn i blant fod yn defnyddio'r Gymraeg tu allan yn y gymuned. Felly, os da ni'n hyfforddi'n plant i fynd at dechnoleg trwy gyfrwng y Gymraeg, da ni yn hitio'r darged yna, bod nhw'n mwynhau y poblogeiddio'r Gymraeg, bod nhw'n ymfalchuon i hardal leol, bod nhw yn falchuon i hunaniaeth Gymraeg, hanes, treftadaeth ac etifeddiaeth. Ac wrth gwrs, mi oedd y prosiect yma yn gwneud hynny ar bob ogwydd. Da ni'n edrych ymlaen i weld be fedar dyfu allan o'r hadyn yma. Dwi'n siŵr y bydd o'n egino yn mynd i fod yn rhywbeth cyffroes iawn.
Mae'r plant wedi cael wir fwynhad o Gymru Rhan, a mae wedi bod yn braf cael Cymru Rhan mewn rhywbeth yn wahanol, rhywbeth lle dwi'n teimlo, dwi wedi dysgu chydig bach, achos to'n i'm yn gyfarwydd efo sut oedd o'n gweithio. Mae'n gwneud i ni feddwl pyn bach mwy, prosiect da iawn.
Do, da ni wedi mwynhau o lot.
I'll talk quickly, as fast as I can. I am Dr. Sara Thomas. I am the Scotland Programme Coordinator for Wikimedia UK, and I'd like to ask you if you are sitting comfortably, because it's story time. This is a folktale of sorts. And like many other folktales, you will recognise monsters, quests, an enchanted forest, because there's always a forest, and damsels trapped or held prisoner waiting for rescue. This last bit is problematic, of course, because I advocate strongly that princesses should rescue themselves, but please bear with me, you will see where I am going. Once upon a time, because all good stories start with a once upon a time. In a Scotland not too far distant from my own, there was a young woman called Marie Lamont and an old woman called Lady Catherine Bruce of Clackmannan, fixed in time as young and old. Their stories have been long forgotten in the forest of time and history, buried amongst thickets and thorns and overgrowth so dense that even the shape of the woodland path is lost. Stories were told of their stories, but after a while, those stories became fewer and voices fell silent. We found ourselves looking at the spaces where those stories were without recognizing what it was that we saw. And in this way, as time and distance accumulate like so much dust, stories fade from our consciousness. Stories are the narrative of a society and the means by which a community understands itself. So when a society forgets its stories, it loses sense of itself. The forest of time and history becomes less intelligible. Now this forest is thick, and there are monsters there. Chest-beating orcs and angry trolls who only like certain types of tree and certain types of story to grow and to flourish and to define the shape of the wood, to form the shape of the paths we take through it. And if a story should start to grow, of the kind these monsters hate, then that poor little story might find itself pulled out at the roots and tossed aside, stripped and chewed up. There may be monsters in this forest, but as you'd expect in any folktale, there are woodcutters that are oft fond of chasing wolves. There are elves, there are dwarves, there are gnomes, and all kinds of magical creatures that we might call upon in our troll-ridden times. There are those who wish to open the paths. There are storytellers. Orcs and trolls, now you might not know this, but orcs and trolls aren't fond of storytellers. And that's because storytellers have the power to shape the forest and how we understand it. Storytellers can transform the paths we take. Storytellers enable the distribution of knowledge. Storytellers take tales from the public domain and make them new with each iteration, and in this way they also become producers of knowledge. Now, over the last few years, I've seen how open practitioners and those who engage with open become storytellers in the way that I would understand it. How they become distributors and producers of knowledge, and how powerful a rediscovered story can be. And also which stories don't get told. My job is about encouraging others to adventure into the land of lost stories. Now, last year, I came upon a group of librarians at a university in Glasgow and a group of local history enthusiasts in a library in Inverclyde. And together we went to rescue two women, Marie Lamont and Lady Catherine Bruce of Clackmannan, and by writing their Wikipedia articles, give those stories a chance at new life, to hack away at the undergrowth that hides them. Those articles are not perfect by any means, and in some ways you might not even call them finished. Wikipedia, after all, is never finished. We need more people with access to different tools to cut away the thickets and the thorns that obscure our history. There is, in Scotland, a small but growing band of these storytellers of the public domain, part of a community of the commons, one piece of a wider network. They are concerned with unearthing hidden histories, opening up their stories to the world. By using Wikipedia, we can make those stories discoverable and by a global audience. Over the last few years, I have met and trained hundreds of these kinds of storytellers who come armed with knowledge and bursting to spill their secrets, fresh and full of energy, ready to reshape woodland paths and scare away monsters, but there are not enough of them. Advocacy is a dragon with a long tail, and it can take a long time to convince a storyteller that that is indeed what they are. We have battled against ignorance. We have been patient over what feels like 100 years' sleep. We know that we cannot spin straw into gold, but we will name Rumpelstiltskin in about 300 different language Wikipedias, and we will fight the good fight openly, and we will tell stories. Marie Lamont was born in 1646 in Inverkip in Renfrew, to the west of Glasgow in Scotland. Lady Catherine Bruce was born 50 years later in 1696 in Clackmannanshire, on the other side of the country. Marie Lamont was killed before Catherine was even born, put to death, accused of being a witch. The discovery of witches and the purification of the community that symbolized became the life's work of a witch finder, pursued with zeal and passion and without mercy. One such zealot involved in Marie's case was a local reverend, keen to make his name and whose name I will not dignify here by repetition. There are many narratives around the phenomenon of witch mania which spread through Europe and that peaked in Britain in the late 15th and early 1600s. Misogyny, a distraction, ergot poisoning, shoring up of mostly male power, a dislike of female independence, perhaps. Indeed, many of the victims of these wild-eyed zealots, these extremists, possessed a sharp tongue and a lack of deference to authority. It is not clear to me how it was that Marie Lamont's confession was extracted. But Marie Lamont was 16 years old when she was burned to death in May of 1662. Lady Catherine Bruce was a Scottish noblewoman and Jacobite. Her husband, Henry Bruce, fought in the Jacobite Rebellion of 1745, and it's often the men who are remembered in such circumstances, but let us not forget the damn rebel bitches of the 45. Lady Catherine was known for her eccentricity, shall we say. She was known for her parties. She claimed to be descended from Robert the Bruce, King of Scotland in the 1300s, and that her family sword had belonged to him. It was customary, at parties that she hosted, to knight certain attendees should she deem them worthy of the honour. At the age of 91, it is recorded that although illness had nearly robbed her of her speech, she hefted the sword and knighted one Robbie Burns, claiming that she had a better right to confer that title than some people. Here is a woman with little deference to authority and a sharp tongue indeed. Lady Catherine Bruce of Clackmannan lived to the age of 95. So what have we got here? A story of patriarchy and a story of forgotten history. A story of class privilege, perhaps. All of these things. Well-behaved women rarely make history, they say. But they forget, perhaps, that the price of bad behaviour can be death. And so to the moral of our tale. Even when women are not well-behaved, even when women do make history, history does not write about them in the same way that it writes about their male counterparts. Women's history leaves fewer traces in the forest, fewer threads to follow and fewer breadcrumbs, fewer paths to open, and those that there are more thickly overgrown. But while we have storytellers, while we have practitioners of open, while we have those who are trained not only to discover stories, but to make them discoverable, to tell and to train others to tell, to learn how to follow those breadcrumbs, then we make the forest intelligible. And these women's stories will not be forgotten. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Martin. If I'd known I was going to be on after Sarah, I would have brought the fireworks, the backing dancers and sound system, because there is no following that incredible performance. I'm just going to speak to you, I'm sorry, and maybe I have some good news for you. UKRI, which is the main national UK academic funding body, is looking to invest in the nation's collections, in museum collections, so that there's the maximum benefit of the collections in museums and national trust properties for research and innovation and education. And they've been inviting proposals, and Oxford University has led a consortium of museums and the National Trust involved as well to put in proposals, and they're talking about a sum of 100 million quid. So there's a way to get before that's released. So it needs ministerial sign-off. Ministers are busy with things at the moment. We might have a change of minister soon, we might have a change of government soon. There's lots of hurdles, and that's even before the money is nominally released, and then institutions have to apply for the money, have to say specifically what they're going to have to do with it. So I'm not counting my chickens, as the saying goes, because they haven't hatched yet, and I'm not even sure they have the eggs. But it's possible. It could well be that in a year's time, this money floods into museums to improve the accessibility of museum collections. And it's for three things. Digitization, so making digital scans and 3D scans of things in museums, paintings and sculptures. There's catalogues. So some museums, you'll see the big names have a database-driven catalogue, and there's like a page for everything they have in their collection. Lots of museums don't. So there are small museums that have a document on their site which is manually edited and lists some things they have. So they want to get to a point where they all have databases, they have database-driven websites. Every exhibit could have its own official web link. So there's digital stuff, there's data. That's good for us. Sort of the more images there are, the more images there could be in our platforms, the more data there are, the more things we can link to, the more data we could be harvesting. It's not guaranteed to be creative, like freely licensed images. That's a cultural change that hasn't happened yet, and the sector still has different opinions about that. But the smaller third arm of the funding is for tools for search and discovery of all this stuff they're going to make. So it's one thing to make this digital stuff. It's another thing to actually join it up and make it accessible and give different ways for people to find it, interact with it, use it in research and education. And the documents sent by the University of Oxford outlining this activity all mention Wikidata, the Semantic Web. What's the Semantic Web? Well, it's a lot of technologies. I'd say Wikidata, really. And specifically mention using Wikidata to tag what is depicted in art. So that's a cultural change, that Wikidata is really central in that description of that funding, and that wouldn't have happened a year ago. That's cultural change, and I think that's because it's happened because the sector looks to Oxford University. Oxford University has 4 big museums and numerous little collections, so it's a microcosm of the problem facing the whole country, and joining up these things, making them usable. So the sector looks to Oxford for advice about national policy. Also, there's been someone in Oxford the past couple of years doing prototypes, proofs of concept, going to staff meetings, giving training, blogging, having meetings with people, and promoting that Wikidata is actually the future. So I want to share with you the three things I think being most persuasive. One is the speed of prototyping, the speed of development. So the people in the sector have heard about making a prototype, a proof of concept for an online tool to discover museum collections. They've heard that and they've funded those sorts of things. And it costs 200 grand. And you hire a developer and an interface person, maybe a subject specialist, and you a manager to manage all of them, and you set them away a year, and then you have your prototype and you evaluate it. But with Wikidata, if you know to use the Wikidata query service and Historypedia and those sorts of tools, in minutes you can make a mock-up of here's a map of the birthplaces of the artists in this collection. Here's a timeline of this set of people that you're interested in. So you can sort of have an idea for something in the morning and kind of do it over lunch hour and demonstrate it and review it in the afternoon. So that changes the sector, that changes the whole way that process works. And I, working half-time over a year and a half, made 3 proofs of concept and numerous other little prototypes and mock-ups and stuff. So that's immediately cheap, and that's thanks to open source software, open data, and particularly the Wikimedia platforms, Wikidata and its query service and its visualization tools. So that's impressive to them. Sustainability. So they're well aware that they could put this money into building a massive mega portal. There's a massive online platform in some technology, but in a generation's time, who'd be keeping it up, who'd be maintaining it, who'd keep the funding? And these organizations, the Bodleian Microcosm, University of Oxford, is they have so many of these old projects using different technologies on different servers, and it's a massive drain on staff time and time to maintain all this stuff. And how do you join it up? That's a nightmare. But they see that Wikipedia still is there, a generation on. And they see that things are being edited when they're put on Wikidata, on Wikicommons, on Wikipedia, but they're coming around to the realization that that's a good thing, because these things have to be edited over time to keep them up to date and keep them fresh and to get the greatest value out of them. So we're seen as a way to make these things that academia and the cultural sector produce sustainable. And lastly, there's decolonization. So the whole museum sector is going through this cultural change of this awareness of we have all this stuff. Should we have all this stuff? And the way it's described, all descriptions of things in museums have problems with colonial language, with the way they talk about groups of people, or the way it talks about issues of sexuality or gender. And so museums are retraining their staff, top to bottom, in every aspect of what they do, to open up to other perspectives. We can't fix that, but it's a huge advantage of us that our platforms are multilingual. So someone from the Middle East, someone from Africa, someone from the First Nations in Canada, they can put in to Commons or Wikidata what this is called in their language and a description of what it is. So they badly need that. They badly need the way to involve different parts of society. We have our own issues with decolonizing. We're going through the same process. But again, that makes us kind of fellow travelers with them. Not providing a solution to this very complex problem, but a big element of it. So I think that's good news. I urge you that's outreach we can all do. Make a meeting with somebody, show them a Historypedia timeline, show them a Wikidata graph, talk to them about decolonization and sustainability. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Which one?
I would rather use the Google Drive thing if that's possible.
The Google Drive
There's a link
thing.
in the Google Doc. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool.
Sorry.
You go. I'll just...
Okay. I'll try. Loading. Present. Okay, so hi, my name is Kopetsky. I'm on the board of Wikimedia Austria. Last year I was here to talk about a bit about the organizational structure of Wikimedia Austria and like our organizational rework that we did. This year I'm here to show you a bit what's happening in other parts of Europe Sorry, other parts of Europe, and this is like an article writing contest which has been happening since 2015, and it's called CE Spring. So what CE Spring is about, it's a writing contest held across 27 languages in 29 communities in Central and Eastern Europe. It also includes like Southeastern Europe and the Caucasus, because that's technically still Europe, depending on who you ask. And it's been a really interesting thing because you have all these different languages, and the way it works is that you have like every country or every community has a list of articles that can be translated into other languages based on the article in English Wikipedia, because like that's as so often the lingua franca in this part of the world. And then the other communities go along and translate those articles into their local language. That includes like languages like Albanian, the Baltic countries, but also includes rather big language Wikipedias like Polish or Ukrainian. And it really helps in like building a community and understanding between the countries in Central and Eastern Europe. You can see here how there's some founding members and some invited countries, but in general, like it's Central, Eastern, and Southeastern Europe. It's also interesting how you have like small languages from inside Russia, which you didn't know existed before you took part in this contest, that exist and also have like a healthy community. And it just like creates a more interesting community, I think. And like there's a meeting every year where the Central and Eastern European communities meet to talk about working on things like this, or coming up with new ideas, or how to build more capacity in the countries, or get more volunteers. And as you can see, over the years, like we've gone from 390 users writing 9,000 articles to 500 users writing 11,000 articles. So it's been a bit of an up and down, depending on some local factors, but it's been really interesting to see how this concept develops. And you also have, so just let me, okay, I'm not sure why that's there, but it's good. And you also have, like, of those 500 users, we have 125 new users, so a quarter of these users are actually fairly new to Wikipedia, which is, of course, easier on smaller Wikipedias because there's less to worry about and more articles to write. This is, should I just? No, so. And just to mention, like those 11 articles are not evenly spread across all Wikipedias, of course. Like we have Ukrainian Wikipedia, which writes about like a quarter of all articles in 1 year. We never know how they do it, but they do it. And just some quick lessons learned about the whole project. Some local events can factor into how many articles the local community contributes. Like, for example, last year we had the revolution in Armenia, which meant like Armenian didn't contribute 1,000 articles like you usually do, but only like 200. It's because there are better things to do, basically. Interesting is like there's an international team organizing all of this, like across all these communities, if you're wondering how that worked. And we used to have a blog and Facebook and so on, and Twitter, and because of other like commitments, we weren't able to do that this year. But as you saw the numbers, like it didn't really have any impact on the numbers. So I don't know why we do the social media stuff in the first place. There might be a long-term effect of like people not being as motivated, but at least this year it didn't really have a negative impact. And as with everything with the foundation, like centralizing bureaucracy, as in funding, and decentralizing the creativity, like having local organizers in the Wikipedias just focusing on organizing the contest actually works, you know. Because like we as the international team apply for the grant by the foundation instead of every of those 29 communities having to write their own grant. And I think also languages also vary in that case. Like it's also easier for us to write in English than it is for a lot of communities out there. And writing the same project grant every year is really tedious. Like it's really tedious to explain every year why you need about $5,000 or about $5,000 for prize money if it works every year and you're basically doing the same stuff. But that's a different story, better for the strategy discussions, I think. Okay, that was it. Thank you.